Hi, welcome to this week's episode of Money with Alpha. Today I'm joined by a lovely guest, Francesca Casaro. Welcome.
Hello, thank you, Alpha.
And today, so Francesca and I have sort of been in and around each other's worlds now for a few years, and our daughters go to the same school, and I've been watching her journey and really fascinated by the level of patience that you have with children and the people that you work with, but then what you're actually starting to do to help kids, because there's a lot of neurodiversity that we see in the world, and it's not all the same. So your business is like reframing autism, and we'll go into a bit more detail of like what it actually sort of is and what and the nuances to it. But we sort of hear the concept of autism and we just think, oh, it's somebody who's just got something wrong with them, so to speak. I think a lot of us are a bit
Mm,
more educated in today's day and age,
yeah,
to at least know it's not that, but we don't necessarily understand the nuances and what it actually is, and then how to sort of help yourself through it, and then to how to parent through it as well. So please, introduce, because you've had your own interesting journey. So you didn't grow up in
yeah,
Australia. So maybe just give us a little bit of your background and what you do and why you love it.
yeah, absolutely. So thank you for having me today. Okay, so I was born and I was born in Italy, and that's where I spent the majority of my youth. So then I moved just before my 30s. I moved to New Zealand, and that's where I got married and I had my beautiful daughter. And we spent 10 years in New Zealand before moving to Australia. So we are a good mix of citizenships and cultures and languages. So yeah, I really love that. Um, and what happened is that when our daughter started school, we started seeing some challenges in her journey, and especially relating to her peers. And we started thinking if she needed some extra support, if, she was different in some ways, she was functioning differently. And that's how we started the journey that then, brought to her diagnosis. And I'm kind of a cliche because you might have heard a lot of women that get diagnosed late, and that was my case as well. So I then got my diagnosis a few years ago, and autistic and ADHD.
Hmm.
Same of my daughter. So, yeah, it was and it still is a very interesting journey. And I'm actually very grateful because it gave me the opportunity to start learning more about autism, ADHD, and other neurodivergence,
Hmm.
and to also just, find my community. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's that's community is an important one, because when we
Mm,
feel different, we feel very isolated.
mm,
But then we realize, once we start to kind of delve into it a bit more, that okay, well, there are other people like me, and I'm not like, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just a little bit different, and every human is unique in their own way to a large extent. But there are certain things where we can find that commonality. I think it's
yeah.
important to do that, because then you're like, oh, and then you learn how different people are dealing and managing with things. Like, for instance, with
Yeah.
the ADHD, I've never been officially diagnosed. I possibly could be if I did do that, because when I read some of the criteria, it's like, yeah, I could probably tick a lot of those boxes.
I have some suspicion, I have to say.
Yes, I get bored very easily with things, and anyway, mine's always all over the place.
Yeah.
But I've learned how to manage it over time. So even
Yes.
just a slight digression, on the weekend, I was talking with somebody, and I was like, I use the reminders app in my phone. I
Hmm.
was like, I will literally, I in the lead up to the launch of my app, I woke up every morning and I had like five reminders in there. I don't remember writing them because it must have been in the middle of the night, but my brain is so wired now to write down in reminders, because I used to try and do it with pen and paper, and it was like a complete mess when it was dark and I couldn't see what I was doing. So yeah. So it's important to have that level of community and understanding. So what then triggered? Because a lot of people can get a diagnosis, but they don't necessarily
Mm.
then go down the path you've gone down, which is to actually learn about it and then start to work in this space. So how did that
Yeah.
then happen?
Well, I guess what I did, it's really one of those, it's an expression of one of those autistic traits at its best. Because what I did after my daughter's diagnosis was I went into that rabbit hole, and really I took a deep dive into autism and started learning.
Mhm.
That's what I how I generally approach things. I'm also very passionate about healthcare in general, well-being. So I always been learning a lot about the body, the brain, and how it works. And
Mhm.
also because of my background, I have a background in psychology, neuroscience. So it's
Mhm.
something that has always fascinated me a lot. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, what happened is that I just started, taking some courses and reading books, and then I decided that I really wanted to go into a master. So I did a Master of Autism Neurodivergence,
Mhm.
and at that time I was working already with autistic families,
Mhm.
autistic and ADHD families. So I moved from being a childhood educator to
Mhm.
be a behavior support practitioner,
Mhm.
because I could recognize that in early education there was really a lot of like a lack of understanding and training around neurodivergence. Not to say anything about teachers. They were amazing and they already do a lot, but unfortunately the training is not. It doesn't really help them understanding neurodivergence, especially in the littles one. So yeah, I've been working as a behavior practitioner for a few years, and I have recently moved into a different role now. So I'm a developmental educator, which is a whole another chapter of my life that I just started. I'm
Yeah.
very excited about it. Yeah,
Yeah. So tell us a bit more about that because I was intrigued because when I saw your
yeah.
website, we'll share that in the link. Because what's your business name?
Neuro Connections.
Neuro Connections, that's right.
Yeah.
And it's very colorful. And I
You
was like,
can see
oh,
I love colors.
yes, yes. I love color too. I'm toned down today. But yeah, so what is that exactly? Because I you sort of see like the special support, which I in schools especially, I don't know that they might just they sort of seem like babysitters to me. But it's more than that. It's like how do you then connect with that neurodivergent brain and how do you understand the nuances? Because not all autism is the same.
Yeah.
So how does that part work?
Yeah, and yeah, you said that right. And someone once said, once you know one autistic, you know one autistic. So
Yeah.
autism has some definitely some specific traits that you can recognize, but every autistic person is different
Yeah.
and has different needs. Um, so developmental education has actually nothing to do with education per se. This is very tricky because it tricks many people into thinking that we are teachers or special ed teachers or something similar,
Hmm.
when actually we are allied health professional.
Hmm.
So the same as occupational therapists, psychologists, counselors,
Yeah.
and so on. Um, Developmental education is still quite not known in Australia and especially in Queensland, unfortunately, because DEs, short for developmental educators,
Yeah.
they are great professionals. So what developmental education offer is actually we are the only professionals in Australia with a specific knowledge, competence, and skill in disability. So, disability studies and theories across the lifespan. When other health professionals they might touch, of course, on disability, but they don't have this specific knowledge. And that's what we do. So we are able to support people with a whole different range of disabilities and to support them from, childhood until elderly until, yeah, the old age. So what I've chosen to do is to focus my attention and my effort into keep supporting the autistic and ADHD community, and because I love doing that, and I can relate, of course, to people that are autistic and ADHD.
Mm.
And the services that I offer really vary. It depends on what the person is looking for and what are their goals and what they need. In schools, there will be we could definitely have a place in school and supporting, educational neurodivergence
Yeah.
and also developing some strategies for kids to learn in a way that is more conducive to the brain, because often we see kids that are really struggling in school because they try very hard to work in a way that goes against how the brain naturally learns.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very, very broad profession. So
Hmm.
it's hard to pinpoint something. Many developmental educators also have specialized knowledge in one niche of field,
Hmm.
like me, for example. Um, yeah, sorry, I think I don't know if I answered
No,
your
no, you
question.
no, you did. It's and I think the sort of the summary of the answer then would be it just really depends on the child, and this is why you need somebody
Yeah,
with that broad range of knowledge to be able to go, okay, we're going to pull on these tools to help this child learn in a way that they can actually absorb without feeling dumb. Like
yeah,
I've seen, there's journeys that kids can go on. It's so easy to label yourself
mm,
as well. And sometimes the labels are unnecessary. Like, for instance, if you're a dyslexic or autistic, like there's, so you know what you're dealing with, but at the same time,
yeah,
how to use that and work with
yeah.
it rather than just kind of sitting and going, well, I can't learn now because I've got this.
Oh, yeah, I'm a big fan of, understanding that labels can be very useful. But they have to bring a meaning to you, and
Mhm.
they have to give you a sense of identity in a positive way,
Yeah.
and to give you that knowledge, that extra knowledge and tools that you can use to accommodate your needs. So only in that way and in that sense, labels can be useful. We see a lot of kids in schools that get labeled as lazy,
Mm.
as silly, as dumb, and so
Yeah.
forth. And these are very horrible and negative labels that really um, affect them growing up and have a negative impact on their well-being and mental health.
Yeah.
And so in that case, for a kid that goes to school, understanding that actually they're not wrong, there's nothing that needs to be changed about them.
Hmm.
Their brain is not to be fixed. So
Yeah.
but their brain works in a different way. That's where actually the magic happens, and so the change can be positive.
Yeah.
And I love having this conversation, especially with teens.
Hmm.
The transition between primary and secondary school is really tricky. Brings a lot of uncertainty, brings a lot of anxiety, a lot of questions, and
Mm.
also, it's within that age that hormones are kicking in as well. So there's a lot going on in those bodies and brains already.
Yeah.
And so I love having this conversation openly and honesty with kids at that age, and telling them that the brain is beautiful. We just need to understand how the brain works, and so we can, use the tools that we have to accommodate the brain, and they can do amazing things.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
So, because you see it so much these days around resilience, and
Mm,
there's a little bit. People look at the generations and like, oh, generation. I don't even know what we're up to now in terms of letters, but whether they're millennials or whatever they are these days, I've lost track to be honest. They're like, oh, they don't want to work, or they da, 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 or there's whatever. And then there's, I hear also, especially in the money space, there's a lot of teen gambling, and there's all, and I think some of this is because there's so many things that have changed in our world
Mm.
so many people have probably got, do you think there's more neurodiversity now than there ever was, or we're just understanding it better? And do you think that's possibly impacting the fact that they're not being recognized in themselves and know what to do with it, that's leading to some of these other things and turmoil and lack of resilience or perceived resilience? How do you see all
Look,
that?
the debate, there is a pandemic of autistic people lately is a funny debate for me because, if you think about your grandpa and, your grandpa used to sit always at the same spot at the table and he refuses very stubbornly to choose a different seat.
Hmm.
And he also has been, he used to have eggs for breakfast and a hot meal for lunch and a cold meal for dinner, always the same food. He always been wearing the same clothes. And I mean, do you see where I'm going? This attachment to routine.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that this is autism, but I'm saying autism has always been here. Always. Autism has always been around on
Yeah.
this
We've
planet.
called it something
Uh,
else, stuck in your ways.
yes, we just didn't know. We
Yeah.
just didn't know. We just didn't have the word. And I I've been reading a few books around psychiatry and all, how medicine and psychiatry have developed, and also how, the DSM, which is now DSM-5, the fifth revision,
Sorry,
has
what's DSM?
the DSM is the manual, the diagnostic manual, so
Okay,
that
right.
psychiatrists and psychologists use to
Okay.
diagnose. Yeah. So, and that, it's very interesting to see how this has developed
Mm.
throughout history.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, I think there is no pandemic, there is no like rise in autism or ADHD. It's that we understand more now, we know
Yeah.
more, and we have the right names to describe what autism is. There is still a lot to do, but we are getting to the point where, some knowledge is passing on to everyone and we have a
Mm.
better understanding, which can be a double-edged sword because we don't want to create the narrative that everyone is a little bit autistic or ADHD, because
Mhm.
that's very harmful for autistic
Mm.
and ADHD people because it really dismisses their um, challenges and needs.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think we just know more now. We really know
Yes.
more, understand better.
Yeah.
Um, and even if I think about myself, my journey growing up, um, there wasn't never from, within my family, I thought about neurodivergence. And
Mm.
if I go back and I think about my own parents, I see all the signs clear, really, really clear.
Yeah.
But as you said, once we would have said, oh, he's very stubborn, he's really,
Yeah.
hard in his ways, or things like that, or he's
Yeah.
lazy, or
We're just
yeah,
introverted or unsocial, or
yeah,
there's so many labels that make it okay. And to a certain extent it did, but it does put you in a box as well.
mm,
That you can't get out of when you need to understand it. And even things like I got glasses when I was 14, I think it was. And I still remember my dad saying, "What's wrong with you? No one in our family's ever had glasses before the age of 40," which was untrue because one of my cousins in her 20s at the time had glasses. But, from my dad's perspective, there was this, well, there's something wrong with
mm,
you then. Like, because it
mm,
can't be me. It must be your mum's side. Like, I thought even
yeah,
just like reading glasses.
yeah,
So the
yeah,
idea of anything like more fundamental than that would have just been, no, no, there's nothing wrong with my kid. I'm just, there's
yeah,
we'll just hush it under the rug. Or and in the really old days, they would literally just not let those children ever come out into the light of day. So, and there's been
truth.
horrific things that have happened in the past. But I think because we've had, at least in the Western world at the moment, an extended period of relative peace, we've had the ability to do more research and to delve into these things a bit more, whether it's, neuroscience or physical, like body physiology science, to help us understand what's going on. And I
Yeah.
think it's important because from my perspective, it also helps. I have some clients who are ADHD. And then I remember one, I said, oh, I've got this meditation for one of the activities that we do. And she's like, oh, ADHD people can't meditate. I was like, oh, okay. Well, it's really just an audio. Like it's literally just me talking. So if you don't like the word meditation, that's okay. I'm not a big meditating fan either. And it's probably not
Yeah.
surprising.
Same. Yeah, meditation is another tricky thing.
Mm,
Look, I never been able to meditate in the classic traditional
yeah.
way.
So,
There is always something going on in my brain, always. But I recently actually I'm delving more down to, and I'm studying about ACT, which is acceptance and commitment therapy.
mhm.
And it's really interesting how we can approach mindfulness. So instead of really talking about traditional ways to meditate, we can definitely mindfully do things throughout our day that
Mm,
help us ground and feel more calm and relaxed and yeah, just more regulated throughout the day, really.
yeah.
So that's something that it can be achieved as well for
Yeah.
ADHD people. And there are many ways that,
Yeah.
we can do that. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
because I see the ADHD side of things as well, you can call it attention deficit. You can also be hyper focused. So
Hmm.
my idea of meditating is to just focus on one thing, and I have like a scene in my mind, and I'm just in the scene, that one scene, and I'm flying actually because I love the idea of flying. So I was just like, I'm just focusing on that one thing rather than trying to get rid of everything in my brain, which is just impossible. Clearly, even when I sleep, I'm writing notes that I don't remember until the morning. So yeah, so that I think, well,
Yeah.
let's just flip it around and talk about hyperfocus rather than attention deficit.
Exactly, yeah, which is a strength actually of people
Yes.
with ADHD is a big strength also with autistic people. I've been practicing little, mindfulness acts also with my clients and with the people I see and work with. And one of the exercises that I've been doing lately with a kid was we were playing spraying water and we were just observing the drops of water falling down from the sky. And there was
Mm,
enough to
mm,
have that sense of, you know, you can relax your body, you can relax your mind, you can focus, you're outdoor,
yeah.
and you can really feel that sense of belonging and
Mm,
yeah, so we don't actually need to think about the candle of the light of the blank space. That really it would never work for me. But
yeah.
um, what I would just wanted to quickly add to what I said before about autism and ADHD and how it looks. How we know more about today is also because there has been the neurodiversity movement
Mhm.
at the start of it's already 26 years ago. So we're talking about early 2000, late 1990. So the neurodiversity movement started as a social and political movement, like the disability movement in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And the aim was really to for people to say out loud, autistic people are not wrong. They don't need to be fixed. They don't need to put in institutions. They don't need to
Mm,
be subjected to horrible treatment. With the aim of make them has the other person, people that are not autistic. So
yeah.
this, yeah, normalization. Um, well, it's not normalization. It's called neuronormative. So we
Mhm.
grew up in a society with a lot of expectations and standards, and we do have standards around what the brain should be like, the average
Mhm.
brain, how it should be working,
Yeah.
what kind of challenges we can take on, what our capacity should be. And then it all reflects in, develop into all these role models and, schema that we have in our head about, oh, women should be able to work, have a family, do this, do that, blah blah blah, etc. So
Yeah.
the neurodiversity movement really wanted to say, no, this is not okay. Every brain is different. Every brain is unique, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And the way that I practice, which is a neuro-affirming way, I really believe in this, and I love this kind of practice. I think um, it's really the way that, allow to accommodate the needs of a lot of neurodivergent people naturally,
Yeah.
organically, so without wanting to change anyone. Yeah.
No, that's it. I think acceptance is a message that we can all
Mm,
learn in general,
yeah.
even if it's not to do with autism, but even skin color, culture, religion,
Yeah.
all of it, acceptance.
Yeah.
So for parents, what can parents do? Like, do you need to have a formal diagnosis, or can you kind of have an inkling and then have some strategies that you can learn to help with your child with whether it's to do with learning or behavior, or just functioning?
Look, you don't need to have a formal like diagnosis, and also in the neuroframing word, self-diagnosis is valid. A formal
Hmm.
diagnosis is helpful only if you need to access medication, for example.
Yeah.
So, or other supports through NDS. So there are some, you might need a diagnosis for some things,
Yeah.
but to access supports like the ones that I provide as a developmental educator, you don't need a formal diagnosis. And um, there are a lot of things that, I work with parents. I can work around emotional regulation. I can work around transition and school, and executive functioning. So
Mhm.
all the tiny things that, for example, you mentioned before, using a calendar. So very practical strategies as well, because what I've noticed is that working in this field, you get to see how different practitioners work with neurodivergent people, and often one of the complaints that I hear quite often from neurodivergent people is that they might have got into working with this practitioner, and the strategies were really not doable. So
Mhm.
I really love to think in a practical way what can be fit in their day-to-day life, because otherwise it's not really helpful.
Mm.
So yeah, and that's what really keeps my brain thinking, working, and really being creative as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and you get to know a person, you need to know really what their strengths are,
Yeah.
and to use them. Yeah.
And that's an interesting one actually, because we've sort of been taught like over time, oh, you need to work on your know your strengths and your challenges, and you need to work on your challenges and make them like strengths. Like, there's a lot of research recently which was like, well, you can be aware of your challenges and figure out a way to just manage those, but really like harness the crap out of those strengths because they're your strengths. They're your superpower.
Exactly.
So that's where I think that like hyper focus rather than
Yeah.
excuse me, attention deficit comes in. Like what is the something that the child or you do really well, and just harness that and then go, okay, I have some challenges here. You know what? I could maybe hire someone to help me with some of that stuff, or I can, use AI or a system or, like the reminders things or whatever it happens to be. Because I get told how organized I am. And I'm like, I feel like I'm very disorganized because there's so much going on in my brain. But I've got lists upon lists upon lists and
Yeah.
reminders all over the place. So it just appears that because I've managed to figure out how to work to the not so the challenge so that the strengths can be the ones that I focus on. So I imagine it'd be the same thing
Yeah.
in the neurodiverse space.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's yeah, it makes me smile because I'm thinking about myself, and I'm thinking about, neurodivergent people often have what it's called a spiky cognitive profile, because
Okay.
if you go through a cognitive assessment, you
Mhm.
might expect a person to have quite of a, how can I say, to demonstrate abilities, pretty much the same level in different areas. So, some may be quite good at math, and very good, for example, in verbal expression, good in, I don't know, arts, etc.
Mhm.
But when you go and look at the neurodivergent cognitive profile, a lot of autistic neurodivergent people have a spiky profile. So they are extremely good at some things, but also they need a lot of support in other things.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's what I think trick people, because they
Mm.
might look at you and think, oh, okay, well, you might be lying. You don't need help because you are so good at math. So how is that possible that you can't, I don't know if I'm saying, just read properly, for example?
Mm.
And that's very possible
Mm.
because, yeah, and I can, for example, I can recognize this in myself, not a lot academically, but in a sense that I've always been a very an intellectual stimmer. I love to really keep my brain working and
Yeah.
learning a lot. And I mean, I managed to get 3 degrees and one in a different language, which is not my first language. But I, up until a few years ago, I couldn't change a light bulb. So there are things like
Yeah.
in really practical
You just
things,
hire someone to do that.
practical things scare me. They
Yeah.
scare me so much. And I
Yeah.
mean, I'm okay with, studying, reading, writing papers and stuff. Like it's okay. But practical things really, really scare me. I got my
Mm.
driving license when I was 32. So
Yeah.
yeah, we have definitely our strengths, and we should play by our strengths and not try to, necessarily do what other people tell us to do, or
So
to live
in
how other people tell us to live.
Yeah. So then in the money space, if someone is, really avoidant of, they might have their own superpowers, but they're very avoidant of looking at money and finances and how that all works. And obviously, and there's some things that you can't, like, I joked around with the light bulb, you can hire someone to do that. Unfortunately, with money, you still
Mm.
need to be the one kind of at least aware enough. So how are there tools or strategies that you could suggest that would help somebody who has sort of a neurodivergence and has typically avoided their money? Is there a way that they can make that a little less of a burden?
Well, it really depends on the reason why
Yeah.
have they been avoiding the money. So is it they are lacking skills that we can teach, that we can work on,
Yeah.
or confidence, or if I think about myself, I never been a person that I never been very focused on money, and I never actually understood money a lot
Mm.
up until a few years ago, so way in
Yeah.
my adulthood. um, but there are things that we can definitely do. And like I found myself working with a few people who needed some support around finding the right motivation,
Yeah.
pretty much. So finding how we can talk and think and manage money in a way that might be, more appealing, more fun, depending on what really that person interests are. So if you have someone that is really into collecting gems and stones, for example, how about we start talking about coins collection? How about we start talking about where do money come from? I mean,
Mm.
where all the how economy started, and we might find actually a way for that person to understand the importance of understanding money and using them properly, and all the benefits that they can have then for their own well-being and future. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it really depends.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting because I noticed with my daughter, and she's probably on some spectrum in there as well, but I have to give her, and I'm a little bit the same. I was like, I need to know why. So when you think of children, the question that often gets asked is why. And but when I was a kid, I my apparently my catchphrase, and of course I'm relying on my mother's memory here because I don't we don't all have that recollection, is I know.
Yeah,
And that's the immediate shutdown to stuff, which obviously as I've grown older, I've had to work around. But under like, why do we need to do something? Why do we need money? Like we're like, oh well, I've got enough to live on. Like, yeah, but I'm not thriving. So why would I want to? So yes, finding that motivation, finding the reason why, if there's stories or beliefs behind the money side of it. And sometimes you're right, it is just a knowledge gap. But then there's this hurdle to like, oh, it's hard to learn. I find it hard to learn, so therefore I can't learn about money.
mm,
And
yeah,
that's the biggest one that I see. And I think that kind of comes from childhood because they may have had, and the thing is that we've all got strengths in terms of the things that we learn. Like I wasn't particularly good at math, but I also wasn't very good at writing. So but as I got older, the writing kind of came up to the fore. But
yeah.
ultimately, it was the numbers that got me my first career as an accountant. So I was like, hmm. But then it was the writing that kind of came. So it also depends on the season that you're in and where you're at
Yeah,
developmentally. We might learn faster initially with numbers because numbers are black and white in a way. Like, I'm teaching my daughter to spell at the moment. I was like, there are so many different ways in English that you can spell the sound I was like, seriously? Oh my gosh. Now I realize like how confusing it can be.
it's confusing. Exactly. Yes,
So,
it is confusing.
so like, of course, so then you think,
Yeah,
oh, I'm not good at learning a language, or I'm not good at spelling or reading or writing. But the numbers are all right because one plus one's always two. There's no nuance to that. But then it comes in, but then some kids will just pick up the words and the reading and writing so much easier, and the math is hard.
yeah,
But then later in life, everything can switch around. So I think it's a matter of trying not to label ourselves as much, but to understand where we are at that given moment, and to not let the constraints of the past hold us back from what we want to do in the present and the future.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And if I think about myself, for example, in my journey, it always been very tied to my job journey. So
Yeah.
and that's where my true ADHD came about. Really, I think
Yeah.
um, I. Uh, I went through a lot of different careers, and um, I guess the main reason it was because I wasn't really confident in my skills. I wasn't really aware of my strength points,
Hmm.
and I wasn't comfortable really being myself. And I thought I had to be something on someone else. So I even went into studying accounting,
Hmm.
which might be fabulous for you, but I mean, if you know me, it's not something that
You said that, I was like,
really goes with
okay.
me. Not at all, but just to prove to myself that I could do it.
Yeah.
And I've been taking different careers and jobs that really didn't suit me.
Mm.
But I was trying to be that, especially in my 30s, that woman that, yes, you have a family, you need a career, you need a stable job, you need to ensure that, you can bring home that income to have the financial stability. And so I went into office jobs, and not that I didn't enjoy them per se, but they weren't really a good fit for me.
It didn't light you up.
No, 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 definitely
A
not.
lot of us
So,
have done that. Oh, we should be grown up. It's time to grow up.
what does that mean?
I don't know. I don't
I
like,
think
yeah.
we grow up as we go,
Yes.
as we live our life. We yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm very happy now that I'm in a place where I finally feel so comfortable with what I'm doing. So it took me 43 years, but
Well, at
I'm
least it didn't
here.
take 73. So,
Yes.
yeah. So
Yeah.
speaking of that, so how can people find you? How can they work with you? Can they work with you online? Does it have to be in person? Like how does that process work?
So, sorry, I have just noticed, and I made a horrible, horrible mistake that I have left by um, by mistake. Sorry, just a second. Uh, there you go. I have left reframing autism,
Yeah.
which is not my business. I just wanted to say it out loud. So
Yeah.
I had the opportunity. I'm very grateful to work with reframing autism as a facilitator. So
Yeah.
it's one of the roles that I have at the moment, but it's not my business. So
Yeah.
I really don't want to confuse people. So
Yeah.
my business is Neuro Connections, and I do have a very limited availability for face-to-face appointment, just because life and I have my own
Kids.
child to support.
Yeah.
So I do my best in that regard, but I have a lot of availability online. So I can definitely work telehealth with people Australia wide, but yeah,
Mhm.
face to face, I can offer a
Yeah.
few spots
So is
close to
it
my area.
how long, like, is it a regular, like, one-on-ones with the child, or how does the process work?
So at this stage, I'm working with 9 and 9 plus
Yeah.
has a yeah has a age bracket, and what I usually do, I usually have a first intake appointment with the parents
Hmm.
or carers, the legal guardian,
Yeah.
to have an understanding of, what are the current challenges and
Hmm.
what are the goals and needs.
Yeah.
And then I go from there, and then we try and set up ideally regular weekly sessions.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't actually go for longer than an hour,
Yeah.
because it's already a long time,
Yeah.
especially for a child to focus. So I would never
Yeah.
do that. Yeah, if it's face to face, it's different because you can engage, interact, you can play, you can move, you can change
Yeah.
environment, you can go out. But when you're in front of a computer, there are a lot of pros of doing telehealth sessions, but also limitations. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, we'll put your
Mm.
website for Neuro Connections into the
Thank you,
show
and
notes.
sorry
So
for that confusion. I
yeah, no,
don't
that's all
want
right.
to. Yeah.
So that yeah, so that people can sort of even just have a conversation, because some people their kid might be
Mm.
diagnosed or not, but they just want an understanding of how to help engage them better in their learning
Yeah.
journey, behaviorally, whatever happens to be going on at that
Yeah, I offer
moment.
psychoeducation as well. So it's very important to understand how your brain works, and that's where the change really happens.
Yeah,
And yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much. You've got so much. You've got this like patient, calm, just wise energy about you. And I was like, oh, we need to share that more in the world. So thank you for
Thank you.
coming and sharing that with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Alpha. Thank you, my pleasure.
Everybody, I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll catch you in next week's episode.